Okay, good evening, everyone. We will probably have a few people still joining us, but we will begin the presentation portion of the report back session for this evening. Of course, we're here for the 2035 Kennedy Road Shelter Site Community Engagement Report Back, and we are going to get going. My name is Violetta Ilkew, and I'm with Barnes Management Group. I'm a third-party community engagement facilitator for this site, and I will be your host for the evening, moving you through the presentation and then the Q&A session. Next slide. And I'd like to call on Jennifer to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Violetta. We acknowledge the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Suhal, if you could read the African Ancestral Acknowledgement.
I can read it. Though I'm not a person of African descent, I am committed to continually acting in support of and in solidarity with Black communities seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact Black communities in Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Thank you, Suhal. Next slide. Okay, so just a few technical slides to make sure that everyone who has joined can hear properly, and then later on participate in the Q&A section. So if you are having any trouble hearing or understanding what is being said, you can dial in on your telephone at 647-484-1598. And then you will need to enter the access code. The access code is 2464-136-5681. So you can keep muted on the computer, and if you are having trouble hearing while you're on the computer, you can call in on the phone or just disconnect the computer and listen on the phone. We will describe all of the slides. Next slide. A reminder and a note that this session is being recorded. The video will be posted on the website, the city website for 2035 Kennedy Road. So when you are speaking in the Q&A section, your opinions, your statements, your voice will become a part of the public record. Participants are asked not to share any personal information about yourself or other people, such as your name, address, contact information within the meeting. If there's a private matter that you wish to discuss, you can contact us at 2035kennedyroad@gmail.com. That's 2035kennedyroad@gmail.com. No space, no dots. Next slide. In terms of WebEx, this is the platform we are using for this session, and accessibility. If you require any accessibility related accommodation or adaptive technologies, those on your phone often work best. Panelists will describe the content of the slides during the presentation, and the video recording of this meeting will be closed captioned when it's posted on the project website. As you're listening and watching, try to familiarize yourself with the WebEx platform and your phone or computer. Knowing how to raise, unraise your hand to ask a question and how to type questions into the Q&A box helps to make the meeting go more smoothly. And we'll review some of the technical bits of how to do this just before we start the question and answer session. Next slide. We Of course, there's an online meeting code of conduct. We'll go over it in a little bit more detail just before we start the Q&A. Please do be patient. If there are any sort of technical issues at our end, we'll try to resolve them as they occur. And at all times, we ask for people to be respectful. We'll go over this again, as I said, in more detail when we come down to the Q&A session, as the section on the presentations will not be open to question and answer. You please hold your questions and answers to the end, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce the presenters for this evening. One will be myself as host, and I'll also be presenting along with my colleague, Maria Crawford. We're both the third-party community engagement facilitators for this site. We will also be joined by Suhal Ahmed, whose voice you've heard. He is the Manager of Planning and Engagement for the Shelter Support, Housing and Administration Department of the City of Toronto, so often referred to as SSHA in short. We're also joined by Scott McDonald, who will be presenting on behalf of Homes First Society, and Scott is the Manager of Hotel Programs at Homes First. In addition to our presenters, we'll also be joined by Richard Shaw, who's a sergeant with 42 Division at the end. He'll be helping to answer any questions that come up that are better responded to by TPS, and we'll be joined by other city staff, including Jennifer McGowan, who is the Supervisor of Stakeholder and Community Engagement, Adriana Dila, the Agency Review Officer for Homelessness Initiatives and Prevention Services, and Morag Perkins, who's a Housing Consultant with Homeless Initiatives and Prevention Services. So today, the session, the purpose is to provide an update on the shelter site at 2035 Kennedy Road, including any services and supports that are currently at the site and the ongoing community engagement activities. The aim is also to respond to any questions, concerns, and offers of support from the community, and to contribute to the success of the shelter in the community and next steps to help make that happen. So we will start with some opening remarks just to go through the agenda a little bit. We'll have opening remarks, then we'll present background and overview of the community engagement activities that Maria and I have completed for the site, report back on what we've heard from the stakeholders. We'll hear an update from Homes First Society, and then we will open it up to the question and answer session, and then we'll be closing and wrap up. Okay, and hopefully that'll bring us somewhere to around 7:30. We will have to end the session by 7:30. The slide deck will be posted on the website within the next few days, actually, if not tomorrow, then probably early next week, and that'll be available on the project website. Okay, so now I'd like to call on Suhal for the opening remarks. Suhal?
Thank you so much, Violetta. I will provide a brief overview of the situation around homelessness in the City of Toronto, as well as provide some details related to how this site was selected. So over the past 2 years, the shelter system has undergone significant and dramatic transformation to respond to the unprecedented situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The City of Toronto conducted its fifth street needs assessment in April 2021. The street needs assessment is a needs assessment survey and point count of people experiencing homelessness in Toronto, led by Shelter Support and Housing Administration. Based on that, the 2021 street needs assessment, it was estimated that there were 7,347 people experiencing homelessness in Toronto on April 21st, 2021. More recent shelter flow data from August of this year showed that 9,724 people used the shelter system in a 3-month period. This highlights that there is a significant growth in the number of people experiencing homelessness even within the last year. Challenges in the shelter system have been compounded by the opioid crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. The underlying cause of homelessness, the housing affordability gap in Toronto, has continued to worsen. As of May 2022, there are 25 temporary shelter sites providing safe shelters to approximately 3,200 people experiencing homelessness. These spaces account for approximately 40% of our total shelter system capacity. There is no easy way to suddenly reverse or close these sites overnight. Instead, SSHA is developing a phased transition and relocation plan for temporary sites, which is starting this year, that considers the needs of service users and ensures adequate shelter system capacity will be maintained. Details of this plan will be continue to be shared through the city's webpage over the coming months. Next slide, please. A common question we get asked is how the city makes decisions about sites that are selected for new shelters. So I would like to spend a few minutes sharing some information that I think will be helpful. Shelters are one of the many municipal services that the city provides. Like daycares, libraries, and community centers, it is important that shelters are available in neighborhoods across Toronto. When searching for a new shelter location, city staff will seek buildings that are available, affordable, of a suitable size, and close to transit and other services. While those criteria are fairly strict because we want to ensure we're meeting the shelter standards, and therefore often it's very difficult to find a site that's suitable for shelter use. As authorized by city bylaws, city staff have delegated authority to site new shelters in locations that meet city zoning requirements before engaging the community. City staff instead are committed to working with the community to ensure the success of that site in the community. In March of 2020, additional authority was delegated under the Municipal Code Chapter 59 Emergency Management Act as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, along with the typical authorities that allowed the city to place shelters in locations that meet zoning bylaws. Further emergency authorities were granted under these emergency orders to enable city staff to rapidly expand the shelter system to ensure the safety of staff and residents. Many of our COVID-19 sites were selected through this authority. However, even before the pandemic, SSHA operated a number of hotel locations to expand and contract available space quickly in response to shelter demand. These sites were primarily serving families and refugees, but now the majority are part of our COVID-19 response. In particular, a lot of hotels were selected to a request for proposals or RFP process. This site, next slide, please. This site is one of the sites selected through a request for proposal from 2018. The RFP was focused on inviting hotel and motel operators to submit proposals for the purposes of providing short-term accommodation to people experiencing homelessness. The purpose of the RFP was to create a roster of cost-effective hotels and motels that could be used as an emergency shelter service on an as-required basis. The program model was proven to be successful in responding quickly to fluctuations in demand for shelter space due to seasonal and/or specific system pressures. A number of sites, including 2035 Kennedy Road, were selected through this process. This site has been operating since March 2020, and through this RFP, it remains available until August 2024. Now I'll pass it over to Violetta and Maria.
Great, thank you, Suhal. So now we'll talk about some of the community background and overview of the community engagement process we undertook. And Maria, I'll ask you to launch off our presentation on that and to provide some of the background and overview on community engagement activities completed. Maria?
Are going to be presenting on the community engagement activities that we've completed for this site by Barnes Management Group, and specifically by Violetta and myself as your community engagement facilitators. We came on board in May of 2022, and on May the 5th, a community information session was hosted by Councillor Mantis. At that session, the community engagement process for the shelter was announced, and the activities that we would be conducting during the community engagement process were shared with all the meeting participants. One of the activities outlined was a community report back session to report back to the community on the activities that were undertaken during the community engagement process. And that is tonight's meeting. The city is committed to community engagement to ensure the success of the shelter in the community. Engagement objectives ensure a discrimination-free process, invite community to join in welcoming the shelter, and create a successful project that also supports other shelter development in other parts of Toronto. And the 5 community engagement activities that we undertook were to establish communication mechanisms, to hold community stakeholder meetings with a wide range of stakeholders, to host a community safety walk, to develop a community liaison committee and hold its inaugural meeting, and also to host the community report pack session, which is tonight. So next slide, please. In terms of the engagement activity regarding communications mechanism, there was a flyer that was distributed within 500-meter radius of the shelter location. There was a web page that was created and provided a lot of information about the site at 2035 Kennedy Road. And there was a site-specific email address established. Community members were encouraged to reach out with any questions or concerns or recommendations they had about the shelter or about our engagement opportunities at 2035 Kennedy Road at gmail.com. You can continue to send emails to that address, and you could also ask that your email be added to the mailing list so that you can receive any future updates on the shelter. Now, Violetta and I will soon be concluding our community engagement activities with you, but emails received at that account will be forwarded and managed by the folks at Homes First, and they will be monitoring and responding to those emails as they come in, and also directing any of those emails for action if that's required to the Community Liaison Committee. And I think I will turn it back to Violetta to talk about the stakeholder meetings.
Thanks, Maria. One of the key engagement activities, as Maria mentioned, that we conducted was to meet with a variety of community stakeholders. Stakeholders are identified to us by a variety of means. So the shelter operator, in this case Homes First, the city, the councillor's office, and we also scan the area, identify things like schools in the vicinity, condos, other community agencies, institutions, BIAs, and local businesses, and we invite people to the stakeholder meeting. We usually hold these meetings in groupings, so the business folks might meet as one group, community residents, local schools. So our stakeholder meetings included representatives from the following stakeholders: Toronto Police Services at 42 Division, immediate neighbors to the site, like Metrogate, business representatives, including Agincourt Mall, community associations such as Agincourt Village Community Association, various community leaders, community service providers such as Agincourt Community Services Association, faith community, school representatives. Specifically, we were able to meet with Agincourt Collegiate and Inglewood Heights, the principals from both those schools, people with lived experience. So we did have a couple of sessions and were able to meet with residents of the shelter and community health centers. For example, Taibu CHC. Stakeholder meetings are held, as I said, in small groups or one-on-one. So they were either virtually or online or via telephone. So often if people wanted to reach out, we had those one-on-one on the telephone. People were able to voice their concerns, questions, and recommendations. We recorded those, and we will be summarizing those in a final report. And we've included a summary of what we heard also in tonight's presentation. Some questions and concerns, if they were timely, were referred back to the shelter operator, city staff, or the councillor immediately for any sort of remediation that could happen right away. Next slide. Community safety walk, back to you, Maria.
On the community safety walk, an in-person community safety walk was held on September 13th to identify safety concerns in the area around the shelter and to share recommendations to address those concerns. A second walk was added at the request of the Agincourt Community Village Association to address concerns of residents regarding the Agincourt Mall area. It wasn't viable to combine both of the areas into one walk, so two separate walks were held, but they were held on the same day. All the walk details were developed by a community safety walk planning committee, and the route for the walk was developed by Toronto Police Services with input gained in the community stakeholder meetings. There was a broad range of community participation in both of the walks, with a total of 25 community members participating in the walks. After the walk, a draft report capturing all of the details of the walk, the findings and the recommendations was put together and circulated to all walk participants for their review and to ensure accuracy. There were a number of observations and findings, some of which were shelter related and others which were not shelter related issues. So all of those non-shelter related concerns will be forwarded to the appropriate bodies, and that could be, for example, the Parks Department or the Transportation Department or construction companies around the site. The community safety reports have been forwarded now to the Community Liaison Committee for review and determination of next steps in addressing those safety concerns. And in fact, it is on the agenda of their October meeting of the Community CLC. And the full Community Safety Walk report will be available on the city website for the shelter. I'll pass that back to Violetta now.
Thank you. And one of the activities, we do establish a formal community liaison committee. So the community liaison committee, or CLC, attached to a site is a formal committee that is, as said, connected to a shelter service made up of representatives of the community. Those could include condo board members, resident associations, business groups, and local community organizations. Key stakeholders and other interested residents have the opportunity through a CLC to provide the city with input on how to make the new shelter in the community a success and address any issues and concerns. The CLCs meet on a regular basis to address questions, share information, discuss, and collectively problem solve community concerns, and link the shelter needs with community offers of support. The focus of the committee is for the positive integration of the shelter service into the community. Next slide. Okay, so we have had our inaugural meeting of the Community Liaison Committee at 2035 Kennedy Road. There are 19 community members that are part of the CLC. 14 of those were able to participate in the meeting on the 20th. Members include, for example, community and shelter residents, representatives from the Agincourt Village Community Association, Agincourt Mall Management, Toronto Police Services, Division 42, condo management is represented, volunteers from the Knox United and Agincourt Baptist Churches, Agincourt Community Services Association, Taibu CHC. We have a representative from Metrolinx, and of course, Homes First, a city representative, and usually the councillor's office is also representative. Again, for information or questions, the Gmail account will remain active. So you can email Homes First through that, and any issues that can be taken up by the CLC will be addressed there and forwarded to them. So that, again, that's 2035 Kennedy Road at gmail.com. In brief, just a summary of the recent meeting. At that inaugural meeting, it's a bit of an introduction and orientation meeting. So we went through the terms of reference for the committee. We updated, Maria and I, on our engagement activities to date, and then Homes First also updated on some of their engagement activities and what's to come. There was an orientation to the committee and what can be expected, and an intent to be action-oriented. There was also a transition of the committee coordination to Homes First. So just establishing who the contact will be after that inaugural meeting. And we confirmed, as Maria said, the next meeting date and agenda item, which will be to address the action items from the Community Safety Walk report. Next slide is what we heard from the community and a summary of some of our recommendations, and I'll hand that back over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Violetta. We had some great discussions with a wide range of community members and stakeholders, and concerns were expressed by community residents about an increase in crime in the area, identified mostly as petty crime, theft, car break-ins, things of that nature. There was a lot of concern voiced regarding the recent restructuring at Toronto Police Services and the resulting loss of the neighborhood constables that are familiar with the community, as well as concern about the changes in response time that restructuring is going to create. We also heard from community members that there's a very high level of dissatisfaction with responses from both 211 and 311, and a large percentage of people indicated that they did not find those to be helpful at all, or to provide the resources or supports that they needed or were looking for. Encampments in the area and occasionally in the park or on private condo property continue and remain to be a concern. Community groups and organizations also voiced that they wanted to deepen their connection to the shelter and to other community organizations in order to better serve homeless individuals in the community. Concerns were expressed by both condo and shelter residents regarding public drug use and drug paraphernalia found in the community. And shelter residents indicated that their interactions in the community are primarily positive. In instances where they've been able to engage with community members, that they have found community members to be open to discussion and to learning about their lives and experiences and issues. Community stakeholders overall indicated that they need to see enhanced policing, health and social services in order to feel safe and comfortable in their community. So that's a fairly good summary of what we heard from a broad range of individuals. And next slide, please. In terms of our recommendations stemming from those conversations, we recommend the creation of additional opportunities for various community members and organizations to become more involved in supporting the shelter and the residents who live there. To explore opportunities to deepen the collaboration amongst community social service agencies who have come forward and indicated a desire to become more involved in supporting the shelter and to learn more about the shelter and how they can play a role in some way. Also recommend the development of more public education opportunities for community members in relation to homelessness and mental health challenges, and how community members can assist in strengthening your community's response to homelessness. Next slide, please. We also recommend that meetings be held with the appropriate bodies to advocate for better response times and faster action when calling about garbage, encampments, community crisis response team, and Toronto Police Services. That there be a meeting with construction companies to request that sites be kept clean and not become dumping ground for other rubbish and dumping of furniture and excess items. That the Community Liaison Committee and the Community Crisis Response Program of the City of Toronto work together and collaborate on next steps in responding to the community safety concerns that were identified and documented in the community safety reports. And we also recommend that the Councillor's Office share the findings of their community safety walk, which they held with Mayor Tory in August, that they share those findings with the Community Liaison Committee and work together to form a coordinated community response to all of those safety issues. I think it's back to you.
Great, thanks, Maria. So that concludes our report back on the community engagement activities we conducted. And I'm going to hand it over now to Scott McDonald from Homes First for an update. And Scott is the manager of hotel programs at Homes First. Scott, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Violetta. So Homes First is We run the Delta Hotel at 2035 Kennedy. We currently operate 13 RGI buildings, 5 shelters, 2 warming centers, and 1 respite. Delta is one of the temporary hotel programs that we do run out of 3 of them. We do specialize in housing and support the hardest to house in the city. And that's sort of what we specialize in. The residents at the Delta Hotel program range from 18, the adult range group from 18 is the youngest, and we do have couples and singles of all genders. We do have ongoing outreach to people currently experiencing homelessness. Typically, our folks are from the encampments that you would see in the parks in the downtown corridor, and those are sort of who we house at the Delta Hotel program. So the rights and responsibilities, shelter residents are equal citizens of the city, and they have the same rights and freedoms and responsibilities as all the other residents in the city. So we just try to work together, and that's why we have these meetings, to work together, to collaborate, to sort of all get along in the community that we're living in. So the program goals are to provide a safe space and stabilized supports for the clients that are living outside, develop programming that has a focus on building life skills and mental wellness. We try to build a strong sense of community internally and externally, and we want to create a program and engagement opportunities that enable shelter residents to share their stories and their experiences. So some of the programs and services that we have is we do have 3 meals a day and snacks that are provided. We do have community engagement coordinator that provides programming 24 hours a day, and that sort of goes all 24 hours. We do have specialty programming that goes overnight. A lot of our clients the majority of our clients will sleep during the day, and some of our clients are up all night. So one of the main opportunities that we've had is to sort of get programming that people aren't bored, people aren't sitting around, walking around outside, and that they do have something to do. So that's why we make sure that we have programming 24 hours a day. We do have case management that are on site 7 days a week. We do have staff 24/7, and our clients are assigned to a intensive case management team that triages our clients to see whether it's going to be housing, whether they need to get their ID, whether they need to get their taxes done. And we also have partnerships on site. We have Inner City Health, which is our ICHA, which is a nursing station that provides psychiatric supports as well. And they also help with, we do have a MD that's on site as well. And we do have MDOT on site, and they actually provide mental health supports for our clients as well. It's a case management team that also helps out, and we work together with the case management team that Homes First has on site. We also have a trust care pharmacy that provides medication 7 days a week, whether it be safe supply or just ensuring that our clients are taking their medication. And we work together with Trust Care, with Inner City Health, and our case management team just to ensure that our clients are stabilized. Because once they come out of the encampments, the first thing they need to do is be stabilized. Once they're stabilized, then you can introduce the life skills, and then we can introduce the nursing station where they can get medication. A lot of our clients do have concurrent issues, whether it be mental health and addiction. So having these supports, you can actually see, the clients when they come in that see the benefits of the services, having them on site. One of the major things is sometimes people wonder what goes on inside. So we do have 10 security guards that are available 24/7. We do have 2 community safety team members that are doing outreach in the area 24/7. Between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., we also do have CST, and you will see them wearing their vests, and there is a phone number that you can call them. And what they do is they engage in shelter with shelter residents and members of the community. They pick up needles, whether it be sharps as well, and they can help with if there's any inappropriate activity. They do help patrol the garage and stairwells, and they do patrol any hotspots that are flagged some from these meetings, and just if there's any community complaints, et cetera, we just ensure that, you know, the CST is checking those hotspots, and all members are trained in de-escalation and non-police or non-EMS related matters. So what we wanted to do is, you know, sometimes on these meetings, and we always share some of the challenging incidents. So what we want to do is focus on some of the success stories. You will see there are a couple of success stories that are on this slide deck, and please feel free to read them. But we wanted to focus on, there's one story that I can sort of talk about, and this is sort of how one of our clients has used all the services and supports that are on site. Now, this particular gentleman, they were living on the streets, they were living in an encampment, and they were getting assaulted, and they, you know, they weren't housed for over 10 years, I think, for this individual. They did have severe health conditions as well. So as soon as they came at the beginning of the program around August, about 2 years ago. We sort of triaged this client, and our case management team gave them some intensive case management. They set them up with our nurses, and then they gave the client the medication that they needed. They, you know, our clients haven't seen a doctor, you know, in 10 years. This particular client as well took advantage of some dental services as well. And then we connected the client to housing, and they were able to connect with one of our rapid housing, and our housing worker, you know, went through a few units, and they were able to secure successful housing in a senior residence. And now they are on a waiting list to have some sort of follow-up supports. So this is sort of a story that shows that you come in the encampment 10 years with no ID, and there's just a process, because when you come in with no ID, you have to get your taxes done, you have to get your ID done through the ID clinic. And then you're able to get your ID, and then you're able to apply for housing. And these are some of the services we wanted to focus on, and also connecting with our nurses on site. They're able to be stabilized with medication. They're able to help the health conditions that they have, get some dental work, get their taxes done, get their identification, and now they are successfully housed. And the Delta right now to date has 109 successfully housed clients. And that's huge. And sometimes you don't really focus on that. You can focus on the challenging incidents, but there are over 109 of our residents that have been successfully housed. And successfully means after 6 months that they are still stabilized. And many of those clients who are successfully housed took advantage of all of these wraparound services, that when they do come in from the encampment, they have that level of care that we're able to stabilize them and help them on their journey with the life skills to have successful housing and contribute in a positive way. So those are some of the, you know, stories that you can read on this slide deck. One thing we wanted to do is, based on the feedback that we were getting from the community and some of our residents as well, is we have implemented several techniques and mechanisms to support the community safely in the surrounding area. So we do have an ambassador program, and that's if we have clients experiencing challenging situations. We do have peers that will engage with our clients, whether it be in the community or not in the community, and sort of help and intervene and sort of help them get some resources, or, you know, speak with them and say, hey, you know, we all live here. And, you know, they provide that peer-to-peer level communication that sometimes, you know, our clients won't always want to talk to staff or engage with TPS. So having that peer ambassador program really helps. You know, most of the clients that have been, I think it's over 80% of our clients have been in the Delta program for over 2 years. So you do see a lot of clients that are stabilized, that reach out and take some of the newer clients under their wing. It is a community. One other thing we do is clients who are restricted or looking for resources are provided with referrals and referral sheets with maps on them, so they can access resources outside the Delta area. And we do increase the CST and security. They are increasing patrols in the community to ensure everyone is supportive. Areas that we do that are flagged, that have frequent disturbances, we have increased the patrols and that as well. And one thing that we continue to do, and it's really successful, is the community outreach. So a supervisor from Homes First Management and the leadership from CST and Security, they're connecting with the buildings and businesses in the community 1 to 2 times a week, and they're exploring their needs if there's any additional supports required. And what we want to do is continue to work with the CLC, Toronto Police, City of Toronto, work together, and then we can solve these community concerns, including, through the mechanism of this CLC, which I think has, we have all worked together. And I think once we focus on, working together and collaborating together, then I think we can be successful.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks for that. And so now we'll begin the question and answer portion of the session. First, some technical bits. We're going to go over how to ask questions. Zuna, if I could have the slides back up again, just to help people sort out how to move through the WebEx protocol. So some of how this happens is staff will continuously monitor and review the questions and answers that you post in the Q&A box to ensure the most common issues are addressed in tonight's meeting. Note that we'll only be answering questions about what is being shared today. And if you have follow-up questions regarding shelters or winter planning, please email your questions and we will get back to you with responses around those. You can ask questions and make comments in two ways. You can type your questions into the Q&A box on the lower right of the screen, and I'll go through that a little bit more to explain. Or you can verbally ask questions by clicking on your raise my hand icon. So next screen, and we'll go through how to do that. So this is kind of a complicated layout here, but if you for those who have joined by computer, and I see no one on the phone, so we will go through this portion only of the explanation. So you will see a raise hand icon on the right-hand side towards the middle of the screen. To submit a verbal question, press the icon. We'll see your hand raised, and when selected, I will say your first name only and unmute you. After you ask your question, I'll put you back on mute, and you can click on the icon to put your hand down. So we're kind of giving other people a chance, and if you subsequently have more questions, just raise your hand again. Alternately, you can post questions in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom right of your screen, to ask a question. So you can use this box to submit a typed question. Only staff are able to see the questions. So when you do ask them, you should be only able to ask to all panelists. We just want to encourage you to do that so that staff working behind the scenes can actually see the questions. Your question will then be read out loud for everyone to hear and will be redirected to a panelist to answer verbally. So we will not be answering questions within the Q&A box. So again, please just ask questions to all panelists so we can all see them, and then we'll read them out. On the bottom right of your screen, there's an icon with participants and Q&A. So right over here, you can press the Q&A and toggle between seeing participants and the panel box. There's a yellow sticky note here. Sometimes it's you see a visual of all the speakers lined up. If you like, you can change the viewing. So just on the top right of your screen, click on show speakers with video only. So then the person speaking and responding to the question will only show up on your screen. Sometimes that can be less distracting. On the lower left, there's a button and it has a little CC, and this is a closed caption. So you can click on that as well. Okay, next slide. This is detail of how to access on the telephone. Seeing no one on the phone, we're going to move on from this slide. Okay, we'll do our best, as I said, to answer as many questions as possible during the session, rotating between the various methods of participation, the Q&A box or hands up. And we'll try to answer all questions. We do have a good amount of time, but if there's a chance that we don't have a chance to answer all the questions in the allotted time, please reach out at 2035 Kennedy Road at gmail.com, the email that we have shared with you previously. Next slide. Okay, so just so you know who will be speaking, we have representatives from the city, Homes First, and from Toronto Police Services who will be supporting the question and answer period. We have Richard Shaw for 42 Division, including presenters that you've met, Scott McDonald from Homes First Society, Manager of Programs, and Suhal Ahmed, Manager of Planning and Engagement, Maria and myself. We will also be joined by Jennifer McGowan, the Supervisor for Stakeholder and Community Engagement, Adriana Dilla, Agency Review Officer, Homelessness Initiatives and Prevention Services, and Morag Perkins, Housing Consultant for Homelessness Initiatives and Prevention Services. Next slide. A reminder that this session is being recorded. So again, there's no need to introduce yourself. Please don't share any personal information about yourself or others, and that includes names, addresses, and contact information, as this video will be posted on the city website, which is public for this shelter. If you wish to discuss a private matter, again, please contact us at the Gmail address. Next slide. And just to review the meeting code of conduct, once again, try to be brief and limit yourself to one question or comment at a time to give other people a chance to speak up. Be a good listener, share space with your neighbors. There will be other opportunities to engage and offer feedback and insight. Please be patient in case we have any technical difficulties, and take a moment to sort through any questions or difficulty with seeing the hands up. And be respectful. The City of Toronto is an inclusive public organization, so any racist or other forms of prejudicial or derogatory or discriminatory comments and questions, including name calling, will not be tolerated. Keeping that in mind, let's launch the Q&A session. So please go ahead, and if you have any questions or comments, you can type them in or put your hand up to speak, and I will unmute you. Hi, Rhoda, go ahead. Rhoda, I see your hand up.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I'd like to clarification regarding community. When you talk about community, and Scott talked a lot about that, what is your area that you're looking at? And could I suggest to Suhal that when you send information out regarding a shelter, that you use a wider range within the community? Because as we are finding in the wider community, we are impacted as well. And I'd just like you to clarify, what do you mean by community?
Right. So Hal, can you pick that up as in terms of the city and how you define the area that's reached out to in terms of flyers and how far afield we reach out in terms of community engagement? Go ahead.
Initially, we do send out the flyers of 100 meters around the shelter location. We work closely with the council's office and identify which households that aligns with. I think we are learning through this process that in some instances, the shelter does go a bit beyond that. I think through these types of engagements, other activities, we can identify hotspots and other members of the community that we should be including, and we try our best to include those in the conversation. We don't want to be excluding anyone who is impacted. We just have to have standard procedures around where we start off at, because oftentimes we also get a lot of feedback from community members that this isn't relevant to them, or there's just not enough staffing to engage with a huge ward area or larger space. So we start off with that initial 500 meters, but we are happy to expand and include anyone who is interested in participating in this process to ensure we're effectively responding to your concerns.
Great, thanks, Suhal. I'm just going to jump in. I see one participant on the phone. If you wish to ask a question on the phone, press *3, and that will show your hand up. And I can only see the first 3 phone numbers of your phone number, so I'll just call out those first 3 numbers to ask you to speak. So *3 if you wish to raise your hand for a question. Okay. Any other questions? We have none in the comment box.
I just wanted to add, just in case people are new to WebEx, If you do want to type a question, look at the far right corner and push the question mark. It doesn't say Q&A anymore. The platform just changed recently. So just click the question mark and that's where the Q&A is.
I am seeing no additional hands up, and I see Rhoda, you have another question. I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Rhoda.
I don't want to monopolize, but I do have another question if nobody else is asking it. Sue Hall mentioned that you want to ensure success of the shelter in the community. And again, you realize that I'm speaking on behalf of the Agincourt Mall community, and I know this report that you're doing is really focused on Metrogate right now. But we need to know what supports, i.e. the outreach personnel, 42 Division and 311 responses that are being put in place in order to make the wider community feel safe.
I think Richard can better answer about the police division, but I think we can reach out to our colleagues in other divisions to see what the resources can be allocated. I think if you can help describe the type of situations or issues you're facing in your community, we can try to identify the right resources so we can work with other colleagues to ensure that you are getting a timely response to those issues you're raising. I can't because if there's litter or trash that causes solid waste, it's I can't talk on behalf of those divisions because we are limited in our capacity within SSHA. But we have found that if we connect at our level, sometimes things can get done a bit faster. So we can try our best to push things forward from our end. If you do highlight exactly what concerns are you experiencing that we can address, Richard Shaw is here, so he can answer best about how we can improve response maybe from the division.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. Anyone who's heard me talk, it's going to sound like I'm a broken record. So forgive me for doing that, Rhoda. Hi, always nice to chat to you. The only way, I mean, we are so limited and we've had challenges with the redistribution of officers within 42 Division that I hear everybody say, well, we need more patrols. We need more patrols. And then I go up to my boss and I say, hey, they're asking for more patrols. And the boss says, well, how many reports are there this week? Oh, none. Oh, okay. And forgive me for saying, my boss knows that I'm in this meeting. He'll say, well, how many people were there? Well, it was sparsely attended. Oh, but they need more people. Excuse me. The way for us to increase our response is to get the information of the incidents that are occurring. And Rhoda, I know you've heard me say that, but if we don't have the information of incidents that are occurring, the distribution is going to go to locations where we are, to be quite frank about the situation. So it's consistently encouraging people to report. And the more reports there are, then it's much easier for me to go up to my boss and say, actually, they've had 17 incidents in the last 2 weeks, some of which have been individuals loitering overnight. It paints more of a picture, which would then create a bit more of a response. I can only answer as to what we're currently doing. We have, different locations where officers are specifically assigned. I do my best to try to attend locations around the Delta as best as I can, only being one person. But the true answer to that question is give us the most information. And frankly, continue to be the squeaky wheel. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's the limited number of individuals who are the part of the squeaky wheel. I think that it just needs to be more people providing the same information and the same message.
Thanks, Richard. Maria, did you want to jump in just around, you are producing 2 reports for the community safety walk, and some of the issues coming out of Agincourt you've connected to already another city department to address that. Did you want to touch on that a little bit and just what the next steps are with that?
Sure. Some of those are, well, all of the the findings and recommendations that came forward from the safety walk were compiled in a report, and particularly with Agincourt, there were a lot of concerns voiced about areas that we didn't actually observe, but they've all been captured in that report. And the Community Crisis Response Program has agreed, has some resources, and has agreed to work closely with the Community Liaison Committee to look at how they can join forces, and hopefully how the Councillor's Office can also contribute to that, more of a collaborative effort in the community to address some of those specifics. So those issues will all be looked at, I think, in detail at the CLC meeting later on this month.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask a follow-up quick question of Richard, actually? As a community member, what is the best way for them to report? Do you prefer online reporting or a phone call to the non-emergency or emergency, depending on the situation, or it doesn't not matter?
No, it matters completely, but this is wherein I know a lot of community members are getting frustrated. I mean, full stop, an emergency is 911. That's pretty simple. You know, if you're in a situation where you're in danger, I think you might be in danger, that is a 911 call, full stop. A lot of people are reluctant to call 911, but if you feel you're in danger, that is what you should do each and every time. But where it becomes frustrating, and I know that this was part of the report earlier, is you have 311, 211, which are designated for different usages, and then you have the non-emergency number, and oftentimes individuals get bounced around to each. The best way, in my opinion, to do it is, one, if you're in a danger, 911, non-emergency, but the non-emergency number is understaffed, so sometimes you can wait for up to half an hour. I've heard 40 minutes, and that can be extremely frustrating as well. But if at the night, like say the night you phone 311, you don't get it, you phone 211, they're bouncing you around, you phone non-emergency, by that time it's gone. An online report, because an online report is statistically also factored in. So even if it's the next day where, you know, I get emails and I'm like, listen, you got to put in a report, because that's, my emails aren't statistically analyzed, only by me when I come home back after a week off, and there's 500 of them, but that's the only analysis that there is. Where if you do an online report the next day, it gives the information, it gives an officer who's assigned to that report, and it's statistically analyzed. So if you find the frustrations that a lot of people have with the 211, 311 non-emergency number as to the wait times, at bare minimum, then put in an online report so that it can be calculated.
Great, thanks, Richard. I see a hand up with our call-in at number 562. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for holding this call. I just became aware of the call, and I'm just wondering, to reach the broader community, how are you advertising? Because there are probably low participation rates, because a lot of community members are not aware that this is happening. So I'm just wondering if there's a possibility to post these in our building, like actual flyers. And the second thing is, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and in our park, there have been incidences of children not feeling safe, being approached by members living in the shelter community, and intimidating to the children in the area. And there haven't been any walking. There's no foot patrol in the area. So I'm just wondering, could they possibly increase the coverage during peak hours?
Is this in the Metrogate Park area?
Yes, it is.
Because there is 2 CST that are specifically stationed right there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And anyone that's in the park, they are redirecting, and we have not heard anything about any of our clients in that park. Nothing has come to CST, and nothing has sort of come to us. So this is the first time we're hearing of that, but we do have CST. They will be wearing the vest, and there are two exterior CST who are engaging in the area, and then there's 2 additional that are right at that park, and they're there, and they do have a supervisor that's there, and they are stationed there.
Okay, because I know of 3 incidences since the summer that had involved children. One was mine with a dog approaching my child, and when we approached the individual to move their dog, they were kind of belligerent, and it was witnessed. But I'm not going to report it to the police. But I mean, there's incidences involving the kids, and they're not really feeling safe, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, sure. If you ever see that all the condo buildings there, they do have a contact information. They do have our information, and you could actually contact us. We do have 2 supervisors that are on shift 24 hours a day. So if we were to hear about this, we could sort of try to triage it. But this is the first that we are hearing of this, and we have not had any reports of the 2 CST staff who are stationed there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Richard, you wanted to add in there?
2 things I want to add. If you saw me smile, it was not at the circumstance that we were discussing. My partners came in and were just making fun of my high-tech earpiece. So please know that was why I was smiling. As well, the caller, and thank you for that information. I know you said you didn't want to report it to police, but then how am I going to get a response? And I'm not trying to blame you. I understand. It's like, I don't want to report it. I get that. But let's say that this occurs every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and then nobody wants to report it because, well, I don't want to bother them. You know what? Sometimes suspicious incidents that are put in, and that would be the report you would put in, you know what? They get collaborated. So then all of a sudden we find out, well, this individual might be hanging out at the park at Tuesday at 9 o'clock because we've had 3 reports of this suspicious incident. And then guess what? We'll be there Tuesday at 9 o'clock. I'd like to tell you we could be there 24/7, but we can't. But if we know incidents that are occurring, please do report it. It would take you 10 minutes to put in a suspicious incident. Not that we're going to try to find that individual based on them approaching you, unless they did something more untoward, of course. But then it just gives us more of a context where it's like, hey, this is occurring at 6 o'clock at night, every night, or this is occurring whenever the case may be. You get the point. So my encouragement would be to, yes, report it to police, not with the thought of getting somebody in trouble, but just giving us more context, because the more information we have, the more we're able to respond.
Great.
Okay, thank you. I think though there needs to be a little bit more communication. Like there is an active moms group, which there's parents within the area who've joined on a WhatsApp group. So I think there needs to be a little bit more open communication or different forms of advertising, because I don't know if everybody's voice is being heard. The other 2 individuals, like their incidences we heard about the children were individual approaching and swearing at kids, and then these kids were only 8, between the ages of 6 to 9. And then the other incident was an individual actually slapped a 4-year-old child and also their parent. So these kind of incidences, I don't know if they're getting reported, underreported, but maybe there needs to be some sort of like avenue where the people feel safer to come forward.
Yeah, I think that has to be communicated. I have Suhal and Richard. So Suhal to you, and then to Richard again.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think in the future we will continue to try to have dialogues, and maybe not in this format where we do an information session where we just share a lot of information. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted online, so you can share that with others who are interested in this initial information. But I think going forward, the model will be a community liaison committee, as discussed earlier, where we can work together with neighborhood groups such as the organization you mentioned. So I think if you can send your email to Homes First, they can help to see if you can be a member or a representative from your organization can attend this meeting, bring your complaints directly to Homes First, so they can address it at the shelter level. As Richard said, police can't always be in that situation, but if we can identify the individual who did these activities at the shelter level, maybe we can try to address it through Homes First as avenues. And I think having ongoing CLCs also helps us have a dialogue about it and not just have a one-way conversation, because sometimes we don't know everything about the neighborhood we're in, right? We want to work with you, hear from your expertise, because you know the community better than we do, and try to co-develop some solution to these problems to prevent it from happening again. So I encourage you to reach out to that contact provided for the CLC and maybe encourage some individual to participate on it on a regular basis.
Thank you. Richard?
Thanks. I actually just always say the same thing. I like to brag that I've learned how to put my hand up during these Zoom meetings, but also if you've ever heard me speak before, full stop, children being affected in the community, full stop, should be reported, because I will go to the end of the world to try to determine who conducts themselves in that manner towards children. And if somebody slapped a 4-year-old child and slapped a mother, it's the first that I've heard of it, or father, or you said parent. I don't think you said which one it was, but that would be something that would take all of our attention, because that will not occur if I know about it for sure. And I would work as hard as I could to try to rectify that. And equally so, you were mentioning that there should be better sort of communications. I can tell you, and again, this is maybe just that we've kind of not connected. But these meetings have occurred not just with this one. There has been monthly meetings almost since the inception of this program. I have connected with every single individual board member or condominium sort of board member. We've done safety walks there. We've done safety audits. We've done a lot of work there. And I'm sad to know that there's a group that feels that they would be intimidated to contact me. I stupidly do this almost at every meeting as well, which is why I get so many emails. But I'm going to give you mine, and please connect with me, and I'll make sure I come. Like, if you have a mother's group that is worried about the conditions of the park, I'll come and talk to them, and you can tell me in person. You want to meet me at the park and show me something, please do. Like, I'm around, and I want you to know this technically isn't part of my neighborhood. I don't know how I got tapped to do this, but I've made a commitment to your community. I really, truly have. And I will continue to do so, even though I'm not working in this capacity anymore. So if you have a group that wants to talk to me, wants me to talk to them, wants to talk about safety procedures, wants to talk about concerns, whatever, please use this email, which I'm going to give you, which is very simple. Actually, I'm going to type it in the chat so I don't have to bug you, and then it will be easier for you to write it down. But I will always make myself available for your community.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo Richard's statement as well. We have been having these meetings for the past 2 years, and unfortunately, I wish that we were able to connect. But I'll put my email address there as well. This is the first that we've heard of this, so please, just contact us, and we will provide, a list of contact information. And definitely, as Richard said, we'd follow up immediately if we hear any of these. If it is one of our residents, we would look into it immediately and work together. So please, we'll share our email, and I'll get you in contact with our community engagement here at Ryan Evershed.
And Scott, there is a question from Dale. Would you be able to share the CST schedules and locations so that we are able to inform the community?
Yes, so there's 2 outside that are constantly patrolling the Metrogate area up into Kennedy Road, and they're patrolling the area. And there's 2 CST that are stationed right at the park from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And there's also a supervisor that engages with them every day. And then we also do walk around on the area as well. So that's the CST schedule. 24 hours a day, they will have to patrolling the area, and then at the park 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. they're there.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I see none. I'm just checking, your hand is still up on the phone, so I'm just checking that there are no more questions there, because you can press *3 to put your hand down if you're finished.
No, there's no more further questions. Thanks very much. Thank
you. So I'm just going to read out, I'm not sure if everybody can see it. Richard posted his email. It's richard.shaw@torontopolice.on.ca. So I'll just read it out, richard.shaw@torontopolice.on.ca. It's very open of you, Richard. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll just wait a moment to see if any.
Jen's hand is
Yeah,
up.
I just was gonna
Sorry, Jen, go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. I wanted to let people know, in case they didn't know this resource existed, the website for this shelter has a lot of different contact information, including 24/7 phone number for the community safety team. Of course, again, always saying if it's a real life-threatening emergency to call 911. But if you just want to be able to reach the shelter or the safety team, those numbers exist on the website. So I'm going to share my screen if it will work for 1 second. This is what the website looks like, if you can see that, hopefully. And so this section of the website has all these different numbers and emails. So it's a really great resource in terms of trying to connect with the shelter. There's lots of other great information on here if you haven't been here yet. And this is also where you will find minutes and recordings and the actual presentation from tonight as well. So the easiest way to probably get here, the way I get here often, is just to Google 2035 Kennedy Road. And it's one of the first things of the City of Toronto website. You can also go to the City of Toronto website and search 2035 Kennedy Road and it will come up. And so it's the tab under who to contact with questions or concerns. It's a great list here of different numbers that you could use. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. Seeing no additional questions, I think that is it for the evening. I want to thank everyone so much for your participation, both the panelists, Richard, thank you, and city staff and Homes First, Maria, thanks, and everyone who joined us, whether by phone or online from the community. Thanks so much for participating. And that will close our session.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Wife's offered to make a little turkey for us. Oh.